So let's dive into sociology. Its very first and maybe most important lesson is pretty simple. Things are not always what they seem. We're about to explore how this one big idea gives us a totally new and powerful lens to see the world, challenging the very reality you probably take for granted every single day.
So, let's just start with a huge question. How do you know what you think you know? Now seriously, where does all that knowledge actually come from? It's a question we almost never ask ourselves, but it's probably the single most important question in all of sociology.
You see, without even realizing it, most of us build our entire picture of reality from just a small handful of common sources. Let's take a quick look at what those are.
Typically, what we know or think we know comes from one of these 5 places: our own personal experience, good old common sense, the media, experts, and tradition. I mean, they seem reliable enough, right? But what if they aren't?
And that's where sociology comes in. It's fantastic at revealing the pretty serious limitations of these sources. Now, while they can be useful, for sure, relying on them alone can give us a really distorted picture of how society actually works. Let's look at a couple of examples.
Okay, take personal experience. It feels so true because, well, it happened to you, but it's never universal. For example, if you grew up in a state that's, say, 98% white, your personal experience is going to give you a completely warped view of the country's actual diversity.
And what about common sense? Man, it can be a mess. It often contradicts itself completely. So should you act fast because he who hesitates is lost? Or should you be more careful because haste makes waste? I mean, which one is it? If two opposite ideas can both sound wise, common sense isn't exactly a reliable guide to the truth, is it?
All right, let's test an idea that feels like pure common sense. Older people are less happy than younger people. It just seems obvious, doesn't it? Let's even think about all the reasons that feel so true.
The reasons seem to line up perfectly. Older people often face declining health, maybe some physical limitations, the incredible sadness of losing friends and spouses, and financial struggles. It just makes perfect sense that all these things would lead to less happiness. The conclusion feels absolutely solid.
But here's the twist. And it's a classic case where what feels so completely obvious is just plain wrong. When sociologists actually dug into the data, they found something that totally shatters that assumption.
The reality? Well, according to the General Social Survey, people aged 65 and older are actually more likely to report being very happy than younger people are. It's 33% versus 28%. So, yeah, our obvious common sense answer was completely wrong.
And this brings us right back to a core idea in sociology, what a guy named Peter Berger called the debunking motif. The whole goal of sociology is to peel back the layers of reality, to look beyond the official surface-level explanations and discover what's really going on underneath.
So, how do sociologists actually do this? What's their secret? Well, they use this incredibly powerful tool for seeing the world differently, and it's called the sociological imagination.
This term was coined by Wright Mills, and the sociological imagination is the ability to connect the challenges we face in our own lives, what he called our personal troubles, to larger social forces and public issues. It's all about understanding that our individual stories are deeply, deeply shaped by the society and the time period we live in.
The key here is really seeing the difference between a personal trouble and a public issue. So let's see how this one simple distinction completely changes how we understand the world around us. Okay, so a personal trouble is seen as an individual failing. Think of one person losing their job. A public issue, on the other hand, is a widespread problem that's actually rooted in the very structure of society. Now think of millions of people losing their jobs, all at once. See the difference?
Let's use Mills's own famous example of unemployment to see how this works. If just one person in a whole city is unemployed, what do we usually think is the cause?
Right. The personal trouble perspective would probably blame that individual. We might say they're lazy, or they don't have the right skills, or they lack a good work ethic. We locate the entire problem inside that one person's character.
But what if millions of people are unemployed? The sociological imagination forces us to see this as a public issue. The problem isn't a sudden massive failure of individual character across the country. Instead, as Mills put it, the very structure of opportunities has collapsed because of huge events like an economic crisis or a global pandemic. This shift in perspective is absolutely revolutionary. It changes everything about how we approach social problems because it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. Who or what is to blame? Is it the person suffering, or is it the system they live in?
This leads us to two competing ideas, which were identified by sociologist William Ryan. Blaming the victim says the problem is personal, it's your fault. Blaming the system says the problem is rooted in the social conditions around you.
Let's apply this to education. Why might a child in an urban area be struggling in school? Well, the victim blame approach might point to the parents, saying they don't care enough. But the system blame approach looks at the school itself. Is it underfunded? Is it overcrowded? Is it using textbooks from 20 years ago? These two views lead to totally different solutions.
The sociological perspective is pretty clear on this. If we really want to solve widespread social problems, we can't just focus on changing individuals one by one. We have to look at and fix the systems that create those problems in the first place.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Using this new lens, what is something you've always thought of as a purely personal trouble in your own life that might, in fact, be a reflection of a much larger public issue? That right there, that's the power of the sociological imagination.